Hello, my name is Matthew Schmidt. I teach the Catholic faith to children and adults, and I also represent my bishop in ecumenical and interreligious affairs. So I wanted to respond to some critiques of Pope Leo XIV's letter on the unity of the faith, particularly after the 1700th anniversary of Nicaea, which we're commemorating in the church this year, really throughout the whole year. I see some commentators online debating this letter and saying it's trying to set up one world religion or one world church, some nonsense like that. Well, let's take a look at the letter and break down what people are struggling with, I suppose. I do have to say that most people online don't have any business being online because they don't have the prerequisites, which I'll get to in probably in another video in terms of what people should do and really study before engaging in theological discourse. I myself have a master's degree. I'm sure I'll have to show it on this video soon so everybody knows, but it's a master's in moral theology. Okay, so let's go down to the letter. So you can see on the Vatican website, you have Holy See, and you have all of the different documents that are used by the Pope to communicate his teachings to the world. So let's go to the Apostolic Letter. All right. And there's a few Apostolic Letters that he's given us. I would say probably about this one, this one, and this one are not really relevant for most Catholics. It just kind of discusses things within Rome. But anyway, we'll get to the latest one, which is In Unitate Fidei on the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea. And providentially, this was given to us a week ago. So we can see the letter is quite short. It's only about, let's see, what, 12 paragraphs? Yeah, 12 paragraphs. Most of it isn't controversial, at least from the perspective of some of the people online, because it goes through the history of the council and the definitions that went into it and what was happening around that time. You could see paragraph 3, the time of the Council of Nicaea times of the Council of Nicaea were no less turbulent when it began in 325, etc. Right? Now, this letter is obviously going to be sent in preparation for Leo's journey to Turkey, as you can see here in paragraph 1. All right, so I just setting the stage for you in our discussion of this letter. Now, the controversies are going to apparently erupt. I say apparently because when it comes to the Magisterium, as I'll get to much later on, there are no controversies. There are some maybe deficiencies, some difficulties, but no real big things to worry about. So let's get down to where people are attacking this. So we get to, let's see. I'm even trying to find what the difficulties are sometimes because honestly, people just fabricate it. But here we have, paragraph 12. Finally, the Council of Nicaea is relevant today because of its great ecumenical value. Okay. Indeed, the achievement of unity among all Christians was one of the main objectives of the last council, the Second Vatican Council. And that's true, right? Now, obviously, it didn't happen, but, it's a work in progress. In this way, together with the great anniversary of the First Council of Nicaea, we also celebrate the anniversary of the first ecumenical encyclical, which would be what they published to define Jesus as true God and true man, which was what Nicaea was all about. Thanks to God, the ecumenical movement has achieved much in the last 60 years. It is true that full visible unity with Orthodox and Oriental Orthodox churches and with the ecclesial communities born of the Reformation has not yet been reached. Now, full visible unity will only come when they return to the Catholic Church. Leo is not denying that. Now, maybe he's not saying it straight up, affirming exactly what that full visible unity means, but that's what it means, right? Now, let's continue on. Truly what unites us is much greater than what divides us. That's a common ecumenical line that was used, if you look at the footnote, as early as John Paul II, but actually it goes beyond him. They could have quoted John the 23rd here, because he said this in one of his speeches, I believe. Anyway, so that's good. I mean, what's wrong with that, right? This paragraph right here, actually before that, this is where we get into it. The Holy Spirit is the bond of unity, whom we worship together with the Father and the Son. We must therefore leave behind theological controversies that have lost their raison d'etre. I probably didn't say that correctly. In order to develop a common understanding and even more a common prayer to the Holy Spirit, so that he may gather us all together in one faith and one love. Now, does that sound like one world religion to you, in the sense of globalism and putting everybody under one roof to, I don't even know, worship some nebulous God? I mean that's an insane accusation which people are making online, notably the Sedevacantists and those who reject the Pope. I'll be refuting them much more in later videos, but we leave behind theological controversies that have lost their raison d'etre. So what controversies is the Pope speaking of here? I don't know. Some might say it's a filioque, but that's not a controversy. That's a dogmatic statement of faith that the Catholic Church has defined. You can't get around the filioque. So what are the controversies? I don't know. But why are people online assuming that the controversies are, things that have to do with dogma and definitive teaching? In order to develop a common understanding and more a common prayer to the Holy Spirit, so he may gather us all together, one faith, one love. Yeah, so that's always been the goal, right? To gather everyone into the one church, right? So this idea of saying that we're just creating a dogmaless church that is, without any unifying force other than good feelings. I mean, it's just not true, right? It's just not true. And frankly, it's just a bad interpretation of a line that is open to a positive interpretation. Now, what kind of theological controversies could they be? Well, you could think about people who maybe get upset over celibacy, right? They say, well, some priests should be celibate, all priests should be celibate. That's not the Eastern tradition, right? So that's a controversy that it doesn't really have weight, right? Now, what Leo means exactly remains to be seen, but the idea that it's, again, getting away from what is true and what is good, etc., about the Catholic faith, it's just not in there. Now, let's get to this next line. This does not imply ecumenism that attempts to return to the state prior to the divisions, nor is it a mutual recognition of the current status quo of the diversity of churches and ecclesial communities. Rather, it is ecumenism that looks to the future, thus that seeks reconciliation through dialogue as we share our gifts and spiritual heritage. Yeah, this is another line that I think people are going to get, some people online get frustrated with, because they say, well, he's explicitly denying the fact that they have to become Catholic, that they have to return to the Catholic faith. No, notice what he says. It's return to the state prior to the divisions. So obviously, it's not going to look the same. Becoming Catholic doesn't have to mean you're in one set of liturgical, spiritual, and juridical boxes. Perfect case in point is the personal ordinariate for the chair of St. Peter, which allowed Anglicans to return to the faith. So, how does that work, right? That ordinariate is fully Catholic, but it has some liturgical tradition that was retained from the Book of Common Prayer that was not bound up in error. The church has done this for so many other things, even from pagan culture. I mean, look at Aquinas. Aquinas quotes more than anybody. Who? Aristotle, a pagan, a philosopher, right? From obviously before Christ. So this idea that, well, it has to return exactly. No. But then people are going to say, well, he's saying, well, we don't have to, they don't have to be in the fullness of truth. Well, no, this next line is going to refute that, nor is it a mutual recognition of the current status quo, the diversity of churches. That's basically saying we can't recognize unity outside of truth, outside of what we believe, right? As Catholics. Rather, it is an ecumenism that looks to the future that seeks reconciliation through dialogues through shared gifts and spiritual heritage, right? And again, it remains to be seen what exactly all that means, but to interpret it in a way that is against Catholic truth is just not doing it any justice. So I don't see anything wrong with this letter. I think people online are just grasping for straws who attack this apostolic letter, which, by the way, is magisterial. It is binding on the conscience. I'll talk about that in a later video. We have to submit to this letter with our submission of intellect and will. Okay, so it's not something you can just say, "Oh, I'm going to throw it away." You can't do that. Is there anything else in here that is of difficulty for people? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, people may get upset with any little thing, but really it was this last paragraph. I thought it was going to be paragraph 11, but once I read through it a little bit, I was like, no, paragraph 11, people weren't getting at that. Paragraph 12, the very last paragraph was the one. And so hopefully this clears things up. I mean, again, people are just, some people, I say some people because, online, trying to interpret things in the strangest, most obscure ways to attack the Pope, which is not good. All right. Well, it's a joy to be with you, and God bless you. Be sure to subscribe for more videos. Let's see if I can stop this real quick.